Hey, it's Doris with Aldi Books, and I had time to pack my bag again this morning, so it's time for the grand finale of 2019, my favorite fiction books of the year. And again, these are just in the order in which I read them, except for the very last, which I'll get to, which I actually think I did read that one last. But anyway, let's start with the first one in the pile. The first two, actually. These are Listen Slowly and Inside Out and Back Again by Tana Lai. These are so good. These are middle grade books. This one I read first. It's written in free verse and is a young girl and her family who are forced to flee Vietnam for the United States, and it's their immigrant story. It's written in free verse and just so gorgeous and poignant. I really love free verse in that I feel like, for me at least, it lets the emotion of the moment shine through and the beauty of the language and just the very well chosen words just wash over you without the extraneous encumbrance of formal grammar. Then this one, Listen Slowly, is kind of the reverse. It's another young girl. These are both, you know, in their really preteen, early teen years. But in this one, you have a young girl who's living in California with, you know, well-to-do parents, and she ends up having to accompany her grandmother back to Vietnam, to their small village for the summer when she had so many other plans for her time. And it's just delightful. This girl is so charming and sassy and just, you know, has a mind of her own. And, you know, had no intention of spending a Wi-Fi free summer in Vietnam, but, you know, she does with her grandmother. Comedy ensues, and, you know, it's just full of this not discussion, but she really relays to you the idea of, you know, the Americanization of immigrants' children. So her parents were immigrants and she was born and raised in the States. And the thing that I think is so amazingly brilliant about these two is that this, you know, this one's written in prose. This one, like I said, is just so moving, thought-provoking and intense. And this one is as well, but so funny. I mean, you'll never think of thongs in the same way again. But yes, comedic, but says so much, and, you know, the flip sides of the immigrant story. But I am just blown away that the author was able to tell both sides of the immigrant story in such different ways, but both so profound. And together, these books to me were just a brilliant, brilliant contribution. And then we have My Sister the Serial Killer by Oinken Braithwaite. I love this from beginning to end. It's really short. It's, you know, need I say more? The title says it all. I really thought the title itself was brilliant. Like, you knew the storyline going in, so she didn't have to bother setting it up. She just hit the ground running. And this one is just so rich thematically, and the fact that it's housed in this, you know, fast-paced, slightly comedic murder thriller type story is fabulous. The theme that really resonated with me was this concept, and it's not even a concept, it just permeates society, that beauty is elevated and, you know, compatibility and intellect and, you know, stuff like that are not nearly as important as, you know, being beautiful. I just loved it for it. And the fact that it kept making so many prize lists and best of lists, and I would hear people say, you know, it doesn't deserve to be up there. And I would just laugh every time that it did get up there, because I think it did deserve it. I don't think that all books need to have, you know, perfect plots and perfect characters if they're perfect thematically. You know, not every book needs everything to be fabulous. And then we have Fruit of the Drunken Tree by Ingrid Rojas Contreras. I may not have gotten to this book had it not been for the BookTube prize. I mean, it was on my radar, but not high up there. But it was. I read it in one of my rounds and thoroughly enjoyed it. The thing she does so beautifully is to tell the Central, South American, Mexican, that type Latin American storyline. She immerses you in the culture, and she tells this from the perspectives of a middle-class girl and her family, and then a poor family from the, you know, mountainous suburbs. They're not suburbs. If you've been to, you know, say Honduras, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I think that is what captivated me by the story, is she showed those two dichotomous socioeconomic situations so well and so accurately. This is told, you know, I think in the 70s, and you have Pablo Escobar dancing around in the background like this modern day Robin Hood, and, you know, with a druggy background. But anyway, yeah, I just really enjoyed her sense of place and people in this story. And yeah, that was another really good one for me. Then we have, just changing gears here, The Thousand Autumns of Jacob de Zoet by David Mitchell. I hope I remembered how to pronounce that properly, Leo. Thank you for your assistance with that. My memory's not always the best, but I think I remember that. Anyway, this one is set in Japan in 1799, so, you know, right there at the turn of the century, of that century. And it's not really set in Japan because foreigners are not allowed on the island of Japan at the time. So you've got these Dutch merchants who are on this, it sounded like an island made of trash, like reclaimed ocean floor. Yeah. And this woman who's a midwife, and, you know, from I guess sort of an aristocratic, well-off family at least. But, you know, anyway, we won't get into too much detail, but it's just very interesting and complex, and historically speaking, very stimulating. And then the thing I loved most, like the language in here is very high level, intellectual, very stimulating. Oh, I loved it. But then he's not afraid to inject this 12-year-old potty humor into it and layer deep thoughts onto that. I mean, go David Mitchell. I loved it so much that I'm just really wanting to read all of David Mitchell's work. This is my first, but I'm kind of disappointed in that I think this might be his only historical writing. I'm not sure, but his other ones seem a little more experimental in theme and plot. I don't know. I gotta get to another David Mitchell this year, so which one should be next? Tell me. And then I finished Happiness by Aminata Forna. This was also on the BookTube prize list, but it was a little higher up on my radar. This one is set in the UK, modern times. It has themes of nature and how we need to take care of nature, the immigrant story, you know, both of which are highly prized for me. I love reading about those things. You know, lots of international peoples in this one. And there's just, you know, a little bit of romance late in life, love, thinking about love's lost. And yeah, it was just so quiet in that, and you know, understated emotions reined in a little bit. And I'm usually here for that. I really enjoyed that one. I really enjoyed all of these. This one, this one's a little different. Himself by Jess Kidd. This is set in Ireland. It fluctuates between the 50s and I believe the 70s. And it's got a little bit of magical realism. Well, the first chapter is like a little bit woo-woo with it, you know what I'm saying? Quite full-on magical realism. But the rest of the book, it doesn't even hardly feel like magical realism. There are ghosts, let me just say that. There are ghosts, but only our main character can see them. So like when he interacts with them, he's just interacting with any other character in the story. So it doesn't seem as magical, if you know what I mean, but they are ghosts. I listened to this on audio. The accents were just absolutely delightful. It was entertaining just to listen to it. But the story, it was quirky and fun and heartfelt, and the ending, she just stuck the landing, nailed it, perfect 10 for me. Very enjoyable. I should tell you, this is he was orphaned in infancy. We don't know the how or the why exact. Well, we do. Magical realism in the beginning, but he doesn't know. He's trying to find his mother, or to find out where he came from at least. So he, you know, leaves the big city where he was left in the orphanage, you know, as an adult. He's an adult now, and goes back to the village where he's heard that he's from, and, you know, starts meeting the people there and trying to figure out, you know, what happened. So that's how the chapters fluctuate between the mother's timeline in the 50s and what happened to her, and, you know, the 70s, which is contemporary to the story. And then, you know, it had to be here. Ducks Newburyport by Lucy Ellman. Oh my gosh, this was another just brilliantly conceptualized novel. The fact that just blended into my consciousness after about 20 pages, and then I loved it. I love word choice. It's just something that really does it for me. I love word choice, and watching her interplay of words on the page, and, you know, making the connections between them and why she'd chosen to use those words just was like, oh man, it did it for me. And then watching how her themes and words and reflections kept cycling back onto themselves. You're in the mind of your protagonist, and you never really know her name. You're just in her mind the whole story, except for a few brief moments when you're in the mind of a panther, jaguar, whatever they call it in here, a wildcat, in the States. And yeah, it says a lot about modern times. This is set in the, you know, pretty much now in the States, you know what I'm talking about. And yeah, I just found that when I finished it, I was kind of bereft for a few days, because I missed having, you know, this woman in my mind, or me being in her mind. I don't know which, but I found that I was reading it, that I would like spin off into my own thoughts, and you know, the two blended so much. Wow, it was a reading experience. So yeah, when I read it, I will say that we were reading 30 pages a day, and I would read like 10 pages at a time over the course of the day. That's how I got through it, and that worked really well for me. I don't know that I could plow through that one, but I really appreciate that reading experience. And, you know, reading it with buddies is, I would say, very important. And then finally, this book. You know, every year you hope that you will encounter that just one more book that makes your all-time favorites list. That's just like the holy grail that you're searching for each year, or I am anyway. Last year it was Thomas Hardy's Far from the Madding Crowd. Oh, that one just really worked for me. This year it's Gilead by Marilynne Robinson. I knew, like without a doubt, that this was going to be a great read for me. It is just, you know, before page one, I knew it was the epitome of a Doris book. Rich thematically, moving storyline, you know, heartfelt. I really get along well with religious and Christian themes, and, you know, set in a rural United States. Yeah, I was here for this one from the get-go, and I just heard rave reviews from people like Kendra Winchester, who, you know, I respect her reading taste and she knows mine. I just knew this was going to be a good one. It is. It's a great one. This is a minister, and he remained single his entire life until late years, I think late 60s. He just ends up marrying this younger woman who comes to his church one day, and just, you know, kismet. It was meant to be. So this book is him writing a journal for his young son, who's 7. The man knows that he doesn't have many years left, many days, many months. You know, he doesn't, you know, have a specific date in mind that he's going to pass on, but he knows he doesn't have much longer left. He's got a weakened heart. So he's writing this journal for his young son that he knows he's not going to watch grow up. I know, I mean, oh. You know, observations about their life together, about his wife, the boy's mother, about what their life will be, reminiscing about his own past, his own childhood. It's just gorgeous, just gorgeous. He's a very wise man, very humble, very introspective and insightful. Loved every minute of it. There's also another man in the story who comes back to town, the prodigal son, so to speak. It's his best friend. His best friend is also a minister. It's his best friend's son and his namesake. This man is named after our protagonist. And just quintessential preacher's son, bad boy image. He did something very bad in the past that we're not privy to for much of the story. And, you know, it's his reflections on him and how this man could possibly interact with his son and wife in the future. And, oh my goodness. So this book will make you think, especially from a Christian perspective, what grace and justice and redemption and mercy, what mercy really means. You know, we all know what those things mean, but when it comes to a real hardcore situation like this, do we really believe it? Wow. And then this is not one of my favorites of the year, but it is a really, really solid 4-star read that I happened to serendipitously read along with this one. And that is The Enchanted by Renee Denfield. But I really love book pairings that match, that, you know, work together to make me, you know, dive deeper into my thoughts and feelings. And these two do that so well. All of that, you know, mercy and justice and grace and redemption. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So highly recommend these two together. And this is all-time favorite. Really anxious to read Jack's story in Home. So if you didn't know, this is a trilogy. Gilead is told from the perspective of, you know, this elderly gentleman preacher who is, you know, in his last years. Jack is told from the perspective, or Home is told from the perspective of Jack, who is John Ames, our protagonist, his godson, so to speak, his namesake, and the bad boy of this book. And then Lila is told from the perspective of the wife, the young mother, and I think it's her backstory, whereas Home and Gilead are kind of told concurrently, but from different perspectives. So really excited that I have more Marilynne Robinson in my future, because this was my first by her, and I think that I'm going to need to be a Marilynne Robinson completist. So anyway, 2019 was a great year. Hoping 2020 is just as fabulous for me and you. And yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I'll be back soon. Bye.